Awesome sauce.
Mm. And here we are. Hello, everyone. Let's jump right into this. I'll play a little music. I am opening, and
who's closing?
I have
no
to look.
warning at all, huh?
Wits End. Hey, Wits End is closing.
Now?
Yes.
Well, no, towards the end of the show.
We're doing the show backwards tonight.
We could do
Just
that.
read it all backwards. I like it.
Here we go. Here we are. It's Thursday night. We're gathered around computers. That must mean it's caching in the Northwest. This is the only podcast dedicated to geocaching in the Great Pacific Northwest. We'll talk about caches and cachers unique to this little corner of the country. So harness up the sled dogs. It's time to go caching in the extreme Northwest.
Oh, yes. Mush, mush, mush. It is time to bring in our abominable snow monkey. You know, some say he caches alone during the long winter nights, and others say he uses a blowtorch to defrost ammo cans. All we know is he's called Land Monkey.
Hey, yes he is. Hey folks, good to hear from everybody and be back on the air. We are joining from an undisclosed location tonight. But I did want to say, we have had debate in the past on this podcast and off this podcast about what defines the Northwest, and I think tonight we can say definitively our guests are from the Northwest. Yes, tonight we're all about GeocacheAlaska. So thanks for joining us, guys.
Good evening.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Now, returning listeners, you know we love hearing about your favorite caches and caching locations right here in the Northwest in your own voice. And we do that each week on the podcast. So be sure to use the voicemail tool on the website and send us your favorite cache, and we'll play it on the podcast very soon. Your message only needs to be about 15 seconds long. That's enough time to say your geocaching name, the GC code, the name of the cache, and why you liked it. Now, when we have guests, we like to ask them what their favorite Northwest cache is. So, gentlemen, which one of you wants to tell us about your favorite cache?
Go ahead, Mike.
I can start. One of my favorite caches is up here in the mountains, maybe 4 miles, 5 miles as the crow flies from my living room, but it's at 5,000 feet elevation on South Suicide Peak. And one of our local cachers who's recently moved to Wyoming placed a set of caches, one on North Suicide, one on South Suicide, and named them Yankee and Rebel Cache. To have a theme there. And I've only done half the series because doing the peaks is a committed hike, but South Suicide has a classic ridge walk all the way to the final mile to the summit, and when you're done it drops away to more than 1,000 feet to Rabbit Lake down below, down a sheer cliff, and North Suicide Peak teases you off to the north. It's just a gorgeous place, and for me geocaching is about getting to special places with views and with a little adventure mixed in, and that cache offers it all.
Wow, that is amazing.
Wow. That is amazing. Now I want to go to Alaska. Well, I've always wanted to go to Alaska. I want to go check out that cache, though. Thank you for...
Come on up.
Okay. Hey, I got a friend in Alaska now, right? We want to... before we dig in even more to Alaska, we want to, as we do, talk about a little bit of geocaching news. And we have, from the geocaching.com blog, you can say hello to 2016 with not one, but 2 new souvenirs. They say, good news. This year we have, we invite you to say goodbye to 2015 and hello to 2016 with 2 new geocaching souvenirs. You can find a geocache or attend an event on December 31st, that's this year, 2015, to earn the Goodbye 2015 souvenir. And then what else follows that? But of course, start your year off right with the Hello 2016 souvenir, which can also be earned by finding a geocache or attending an event on January the 1st or the 1st. And you might ask, how do I earn both souvenirs? Go ahead.
How do you earn both souvenirs?
Well, I'm glad you asked. You can earn the Goodbye 2015 souvenir by finding any geocache or attending an event on December 31st, 2015, and then earn the Hello 2016 souvenir by finding another geocache or attending a different event on January 21st, 2016. Now, can you earn two souvenirs for one event if it starts on December 31st and ends on January 1st?
That's what I
And
want
the
to do.
official answer is nice try. But to earn both souvenirs, you'll have to submit two different logs for two different geocaches and or events, one on each day. Now, how about back-to-back events to earn both souvenirs? The blog says no. Nope. It says the geocaching guidelines prohibit event stacking. Not even a term I was familiar with, but the guidelines prevent it nonetheless. To avoid event stacking, event caches should be separated by time, organized by different geocachers, have a minimum duration of 30 minutes, and take place at a different location than other events. So, if you want to play by the rules, and really who doesn't, go check out the guidelines, the geocaching guidelines, for more information about planning an event cache. Are you interested in throwing a great New Year's geocaching event?
Yes.
Don't worry, geocaching.com has you covered. Check out the blog post that we'll put in the show notes for how to throw an awesome geocaching event in 5 easy steps. You might even call it a geocaching bash. So, gentlemen, how will you say goodbye to 2015 and hello to 2016?
Most likely by sleeping.
Oh, well spoken.
That sounds like a fine idea.
Yes, it does. I'll go out and find a cache on those 2 days, but I'm going to sleep in between.
Make sure it's two different caches now.
Oh, yes. Or events.
Yes.
All right. So we do have another story that comes in from Limax. He shared with us. The headline is, Should SLO's Bubblegum Alley Go the Way of Seattle's Gum Wall? So now that the Seattle's famous gum wall is coming down, well, the gum, not the wall, that leads us to wonder, does Seattle know something we don't? Is it time for San Luis Obispo?
Yep.
Oh,
San Luis
San
Obispo.
Luis Obispo.
San Luis Obispo. Where is
Beautiful
that?
town.
California?
California coast, yeah.
Southern California, west, a little west and north of Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
There you go. I've never
Not
been
far.
that area.
Hearst Castle. Think of the Hearst Castle area and you're there.
All right. So the question that is posed to us from this article is it time for San Luis Obispo, this lovely town that I will look forward to visiting at some point in time, to reassess whether their own Bubblegum Alley is a treasure or a turnoff? As of now, there are no plans to make any changes to their Bubblegum Alley. But obviously the question has been posed by the long overdue sanitation activity in Seattle.
Yeah.
Which is well underway by now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it started
Yeah,
a couple of days ago. They're sand, or I don't know how you get rid of gum on a wall. Do you pressure wash it? That might work for a couple of pieces, but
They're
Yeah.
steaming it
Steam
off
clean.
the wall
Okay.
and weighing it at the end of every day, expecting to pull more than a ton of gum off of it.
wow.
And just when I thought I had a bad day at work, I reached out them weighing the gum that they steamed off the gum wall. So,
What is it you
Yeah.
do for a living, Dad? I weigh gum.
I weigh
Used
pre-chewed
gum.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question, if anybody
Yes.
knows. The cache, the magnetic fake gum cache that was in Seattle on the Bubblegum Alley, or whatever it's called, gum wall, Did somebody actually remove it and archive it? I haven't checked.
I don't know. I'll look here. But please continue
or
on
is
without me.
Or is it disabled? Maintenance.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one that I've looked for but not found.
Yeah, I just have
Yeah.
no interest in bubble gum wall.
The cache is temporarily unavailable.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
took
probably
my
been
sister
steamed
there.
away.
I took my sister this summer to the gum wall because she was visiting from out of state and really wanted to see it. And honestly, I was kind of grossed out just being there. I did a cursory search for the cache, but I can't say I put a lot of effort into it because I just really didn't want to touch anything there.
Yeah, I've seen videos of people searching for it, and they've had rubber gloves on. And it's like,
Oh, man.
no, it's a fake piece of gum on the wall, or actually, it's a magnetic, so it's on a drain spout or something. Brylang says the cache in Seattle has been disabled and will be replaced when the cleaning is all done and some gum has reappeared on the wall. Thus, Campbell.
Okay, but here's a question: how long can they go before in a disabled state before they have to put the cache back up? Like, isn't there a time limitation for how long a cache can be disabled before it has to be archived?
I don't
Or
know.
is this cache getting special treatment because it's the bubblegum cache?
As long as the cache owner stays in regular contact with the local reviewer, the cache can stay disabled for a fairly long period of time.
There you go.
There we go. B Pendragon says yes, it's hot steam because pressure washing would bust up the bricks, and that's true.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's really what they're afraid of, is that the chemicals in the gum will
Yeah.
actually start eating away at the bricks.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the
Dora
re-
Moore found the gum wall cache at the block
Oh.
party. Or approximately 37th in line to sign it, and we handed it to the next in line. I don't know who found it that day, but I'm happy for them. Wow.
All right. Well, that's probably enough about bubblegum.
Yeah.
I think we've chewed up that subject.
Ooh.
Ooh,
thank you.
nice.
Guys, how have your week been? Have you gotten out for any geocaching?
Yeah, actually, we did. I'll elect to go first, as I do every week. So we are actually, as anybody who's watching this may have noticed, we are joining you from Monkey Senior Studios on Vancouver Island. We spent Wednesday and Thursday in Victoria, geocaching. So Thursday would be today, depending on when you're listening to this podcast. In Victoria, British Columbia, geocaching, and we just made our way up to Parksville tonight. We actually met the great folks at Land Sharks. This is the first time we've actually met them, and it was very cool talking with them for a while. For those who may not know, they were sponsors of our hashtag geocache road trip contest. We found approximately a metric buttload of earth caches. We found 2 Where I Goes. We completed our Fizzy Challenge. And we completed several night caches last night, so it was a busy couple of days. But even more exciting was Sunday night when we volunteered for the 2015 GIF event in the Greater Vancouver area. The attendees enjoyed having their photos taken on the red carpet, and honestly, we enjoyed all the films. It was an amazing event, and we cannot thank all the volunteers and participants enough. I periscoped some of the event to share how amazing it was. And I do have to get a little selfish plug in here that I did also debut Dear Geocache Guy at that event.
Nice. Well, you've been a busy little geocacher.
Yeah, a little busier than normal, but it's fun. We're enjoying it.
Wow. Well, there's no way we can compete with that.
No.
So let's just jump into tonight's topic. I'm not even going to try to say, we went out and found a cache this week. No, it's not worth it.
I
Not
found
after
one.
you completed all these challenges and, a metric buttload of earth caches.
Yeah, I've never done that.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Now-
because you haven't done it in Canada.
Oh, that's
That's
true.
true. So tonight, we don't have just one. We have 2 GeocacheAlaska officers with us. We have Wes Skinner, president, and Michael Malvick, treasurer. So Gentlemen, would you tell us what this organization, Geocache Alaska, is all about?
Well, we've got three responsibilities. We're actually an incorporated nonprofit, um, so we have to have a mission, and our mission is to advocate for geocaching. We work with local land managers and try to maintain a relationship that allows the game to be played on their responsible territories. We educate geocachers, which takes on some interesting tweaks and twists. We also have the responsibility for taking the lead in demonstrating the social aspect of the game. And that means that a lot of times we're the person that hosts first an idea for an event. As you can imagine, I mean, I know Land Monkey gets this, but it's really important to us when we have things like the solstice. Summer solstice isn't so as important as the winter one, and we've done some fun stuff with that, barbecuing spam in the parking lot at Lake Hood, and demonstrating how much fun it is to be involved in a social hour where the temperature is barely hovering above zero, but you're out there eating
Spam.
spam. Yeah, it was good. It was great.
Barbecued spam at 0 degrees on a December day on solstice.
There's it.
Awesome.
There, just like everything else we have in this weird town of ours. But the advocacy part of it is kind of interesting. Our initiative to get people outdoors has had a great impact with the state park. One of the largest state parks in the country is our next door neighbor. In fact, Mike lives on the doorstep of, literally, Chugach State Park. In his travels around, he decided that when he had to move to Anchorage, he was going to live halfway to the peaks up there. And from Mike's front door, you can arguably be in the park within 3 minutes. But they're an example of where we have taken the opportunity to really populate the landscape with a lot of creative cache ideas. And the state parks this year joined up with us and issued the permit after several years of an annual permit. They went with a 6-year permit for us, and we're delighted with that because that indicates, I think, a large degree of approval on their part of what we do. So, but that's what our organization is about, and we have a lot of fun with the socializing part. This year we finally got, after years of existence, I have the T-shirt on tonight. We got ourselves dressed up to go to the block party, and nearly 3 dozen of us flew down for that. The events take place from 6 in the morning till midnight, with a whole variety of things ranging from borrowing the idea that the Germans do with their Stammtisch idea, a set-aside place, through, it's not uncommon for our people in the wintertime to host an event where they turn into a gigantic party afterwards that goes out and finds the interesting and challenging night caches we have around here. So there's a lot of fun with that, and that's how people stay engaged with each other in the game, is through those social events.
That's very cool. Sorry, was Mike? Were you going to add anything to that?
Wes pretty well covered it. We did incorporate in 2009, so we actually have a State of Alaska business license, and we're a IRS recognized 501c3 nonprofit organization, and that's something that's important for any organization to consider getting, because once you have that 501 status, you can approach businesses for in-kind donations and cash donations. And one way we leverage it is British Petroleum, who's one of the major oil companies up here, has what they call the Energy Center, which is a large conference building with 8 or 10 conference rooms in it and a theater, and it was built solely with the intent of giving nonprofit organizations in the state of Alaska a free place to meet, and they provide teleconferencing abilities and audio-visual, and we wouldn't be able to have access to that if we weren't incorporated. So it also gives the land managers a lot of confidence when we approach them. We're an entity that has a presence. We have a board of directors. They know who to reach out and touch. And so we've got, it really increases our credibility to have done that.
That's fascinating.
Very cool.
That is very cool. Very cool indeed.
The organization also has an online presence that is part of the education function. I'm always amazed at how often we hear the same questions, and I have to stop and think, you may have been caching for 10 years and have learned this the hard way, but there's people who are smarter than you who stop and go, someone must have done this. Where can I find out how to do this? And so all of our education events are in compiled form in a tab on our website. All of our newsletters that we published are posted there on the website. And so from time to time, Mike and I are surprised to have someone stop us in an event and go, I really appreciated how you 3 or 6 years ago at that education event spoke about what I just went out and did this weekend. And it's surprising in two aspects because I'm in the sign industry myself, so I'm always a cynic. I see right behind you there, which end the stop sign, and we all know that's the least obeyed signs in America. So the idea that people are actually taking advantage of the education opportunities makes me glad that we're putting the effort into it. But I was asked at our upcoming Edge event this month, I was asked to speak about benchmarks. I have a passion for benchmarks. It's a crazy thing. But there are people who would like to know more about why it's included on the website, how it got there in the first place, and then why it's a good habit for geocachers to be involved in looking for benchmarks. And I can speak about it from 3 different angles, So we bring in all kinds of aspects of the game like that when we do the education stuff. Mike has a fantastic series he's been doing on using some of the database elements that you can have to expand your ability to be very efficient in the field instead of just roaming around seemingly aimlessly from one cache to another. So that's been our most popular series, and we're in fact finding ourselves having to restart at the lower level because we've got a group that has done so well and talked about it so much with so much enthusiasm that we have people who are coming in at the basement level and we need to return to the one-on-one set on that. So that's been a good thing for us.
Cool. Yeah, I don't often have to wonder if people are smarter than I am at caching. I pretty much know that's so. Hey, we have a little comment from the Q&A tonight. Wet Coaster says it's good to see that everybody has a mustache tonight. So, and really, why wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
We are the podcast with the most facial hair in geocaching, I believe. Yes.
Definitely, at least the one on Thursday nights with the most, for sure.
There you go.
So this is GeocacheAlaska, and that kind of begs the question, people maybe wonder, do you have to live in Alaska to be a member of GeocacheAlaska? How many members do you currently have up there?
We currently have about 400 members, and that's broken into 2 membership levels. We have what we call a sourdough level and a Chichaco level. Sourdough and Chichaco are NorthWest terms for a person who's lived a few seasons up here, knows how to make his own independently. That's a sourdough. Okay. And the Chichaco is a Native American term for a newcomer to the land. Oftentimes, those were the people that would show up and starve to death after they're in their first season. So
that would probably be me. But which of those has more mustache facial hair?
Well, that would be the sourdough. Usually, they come with the full beard from ear all the way down. So our sourdough membership level is $20 a year, and that money goes toward underwriting the expenses of maintaining the website. Paying for event hosting expenses such as venue expenses or the meals, and the sourdough members have voting rights. They get to vote for the board of directors, and they get a discount on the merchandise that GeocacheAlaska produces and sells out of our online and traveling stores. The Chichaco level, that's free. Anybody can join. And that gets everybody, like the sourdough members, they get the regular newsletter that's published and have access to our forums and can join the GeocacheAlaska Facebook group. So there's, anybody can join, and then those that feel like giving back a bit more in recognition of the land manager advocacy and bling production and other efforts, they pay the annual dues. And so about half the people have joined the organization are giving back as well.
That's
and Wes is
fantastic.
holding up our signature name tag. When somebody joins the sourdough, at the sourdough level, we issue a name tag. It's a trackable that says GeocacheAlaska on it, and we customize it with the cacher's caching handle.
Wonderful.
That is fantastic. Now, you did mention earlier in the podcast that there are events you hold. What yearly events are hosted by GeocacheAlaska?
Well, our longest running event is coming up next month. It's our GeoFest, and it'll be our 11th consecutive 11th annual event. Other regular events that have some history are Fall Picnic event that we've held several years running, and Wes touched on the summer and winter solstice events that we host. And then we also have an equinox event. We've had a blue moon event. We've had lunar eclipse events. But the GeoFest is the longest running one.
Yeah.
And Wes also touched on the Edge events. That series began in 2009, and there are several dozen of the packets of the learning event, of the learning materials from those events on our website.
Nice. Now, you showed a name tag. So, as an organization, is that one of the ways you raise capital? Or are there others?
Well, about half of our annual income is generated by memberships. And this name tag is one of our give back items. It does two things for us. It allows people who are attending events to see who the person is that they're talking to. It generates some interest in if they're new to Alaska or new to GeocacheAlaska, they see and they ask about it. And it's nice to walk in a room and know who some of the people are. But the other aspect is we hand that out in the first year. Ownership is retained by the organization. The person checks it out and travels around with it and takes photos of themselves with it in different places. But the other aspect is they're, in a sense, with 50% of the income of the organization coming from individual dues, there's a strong imperative that the board feels on doing events or carrying out activities that give back directly to membership. And we're always challenged by that because just as you think you are doing well with it, another idea pops up, or somebody points out something that we thought was being covered but didn't seem obvious to us that it was going to be a challenge. And so we're always looking for something. At the GIF event we just hosted, one of our board members and her husband are professional caterers. And so we engage their services at cost, and they put on a complete catered meal. We had also brought in popcorn for the event, and people were so, how do I say this? Their appetite was sated by the incredible meal that had been served that nobody was interested in the popcorn. So the popcorn will be at the Edge events in the future, from our international award-winning local chip and popcorn maker. So, but
another way we give back and recognize our members is through the Golden Ammo Can program that a couple of our members, Blazing Pathways and Coho 5 and Freewees, worked on in particular this year, and Fuzzy Belly's done it in the past, helped with it in the past, is we underwrite the expenses for obtaining ammo cans, providing the paint, the stencils, and the stickers that we then use to recognize cachers. In other regions, the ammo can's given out to celebrate a cache finding milestone, like when somebody gets their 1,000th or 5,000th or 10,000th cache. And I see some head nods that people are familiar with that. But we've taken it another level. While we do recognize cache finds, we also have other categories of giving back. So how many, when people hit certain milestones on hiding a cache, or hosting an education event, or hosting a CETO event, or serving on the board of directors, or doing other things that give back to the game to make it better rather than just taking from the game by running a find count up. And the way we do that is Wes, through his shop, prints stickers to add to the cans, kind of like the World War II Flying Ace emblems that they put on their airplanes. And so people can, even if you haven't hit a caching milestone during the year, maybe you hosted your first event or your first CETO, and you earn a sticker for that, and that goes on the ammo can. And people bring them in, they all get set up on a table in the front of the room, and folks have a good time with it.
I love that idea of giving back to the cachers who are adding to the game. That's really good. And, one thing I forgot to mention so far, Wes, your caching name is NorthWest, which, I mean, how appropriate is that for caching in the Northwest?
Yeah, it was a kind of interesting twist, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
For Wes, it was a natural for me, and oddly enough, the 50% of my caches are found while I'm traveling. I'm usually so busy when I'm here, it's hard for me to get out and cache in town, so I have to go somewhere. And I would say that of the 50% I found outside the state, easily half of them have been in the Pacific Northwest. That, and you may have noticed while I was drinking tonight, the signature mug from Washington State.
There you go.
Yeah, that's because I have a daughter that matriculated from there. So a lot of time was spent down there on those dad weekends and everything. But the Northwest is home. That's right.
Very cool. The Buccaneers scabbard over here is from my daughter's college career. So
I saw
it.
That's awesome, you guys. Hey, another question that we have about GeocacheAlaska. Do you guys interface with other government, commercial, or social organizations? I know you talked a little bit about the work with, or the partnership with BP. Are there other groups that you guys work with on behalf of the local geocachers?
Mike, why don't you talk about what we did with with a traditionally a group that's not normally identified as being a signature cooperative organization with geocachers?
Sure. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service approached us 2 or 3 years ago about helping with a series of caches that highlighted or promoted each of the wildlife refuges across the state of Alaska. And U.S. Fish and Wildlife doesn't normally endorse geocaching, but they looked at this geocaching as a way to reach out to outdoor-oriented people and promote some of these very rarely visited refuges. There are only 2 of the national wildlife refuges in Alaska that are accessible by road. Every other one requires a boat or a plane to access. So local geocachers helped the Fish and Wildlife representative identify parks that still had space for geocache around the city of Anchorage, and helped place the caches. And and Fish and Wildlife did a very nice job of putting together a passport that people stamped, or actually it was a series of postcards that people collected and had to do internet research to come up with the answers to submit the final card that was mailed in to claim a path tag. And that whole experience was capped off with the mascot of the Fish and Wildlife Service is a blue goose. Looks like a blue Canada goose. And this 7-foot Canada goose showed up at our GeoFest event and handed out prizes based on drawings from successfully completed entries from having done by folks who completed the whole series.
That is so impressive.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going up to Alaska next week.
Yeah.
This is it. I'm just going to leave here. I'm going up and caching up there. You guys have a lot more fun than I think we do down here.
Stop in for coffee on your way by.
Okay.
Hey, if you want to turn Alaska red, Avro Air is hosting an event in Juneau in a couple of weeks. Some of the ground speed lackeys are going up with them. It'll be his 50th state to complete caching out the United States. So,
Nice.
It's an hour-and-a-half flight from Seattle. Come on up.
He's a local cacher here. I had no idea he was going up there. Oh, well, now that makes it more interesting.
Yeah.
Now, Mike, I got to talk to you a little bit yesterday as we tested everything out and made sure that, we could get connected. And I understand you have sled dogs. So I have to ask, have you ever geocached by dog sled?
I have, in a manner of speaking, I have placed a series of caches by dog team, and the caches were actually named, carry the name of the dogs that were in the sled dog team.
Oh, nice.
With the sled, this was years ago when we had enough dogs to pull a sled. Now we're down to 3 dogs that are still young enough to pull. I didn't hunt caches so much with them because it's always a risky deal to get off the sled runner, set the snow hook, go into the woods for an unspecified amount of time, and meanwhile these dogs get more and more anxious. They're bred and trained to run, and once they start bouncing on that gang line and trying to pull, there's a good chance of that sled not being there when you come back out from finding the cache. So when I hunt caches, I've ski jored with the dogs many times. And that's easier because I'm only taking 2 or 3 of the dogs with me at a time. And when I want to hunt a cache, I can just unhook the dogs and let them mill around, chase bunnies, be dogs for a while, and have a good time. And if you actually look at my cache called An Independent Point of View, it's on the west side of Hatcher Pass, and there's photos of me ski joring up the mine road there behind behind a pair of dogs on the way to placing that cache.
Nice. Nice.
That is so cool.
Yeah. Now, Wes, I understand you have dogs you cache with. I mean, it sounds to me like everybody in Alaska maybe has a sled dog team in the garage, like we've got cars down here.
Yeah, I have dogs that would be unusual on the route to Iditarod. I have standard poodles. And although one musher did actually run a team of standard poodles up there, now mine are great trail companions. And actually, when she was less than a year old, the first standard poodle I have, after hanging out with a bunch of the folks up for one of the first Alaska Cache and Dash experiences, we'd had them stay at the house here, John Stanley and a few folks, and she actually, thanks to a phone call from a guy named Mike who was living in Fairbanks at the time, who said, "Hey, you aren't going to believe this. There's a mountain bike geocoin that's been left behind up at Hatcher's Pass. You ought to try for it." Well, this is at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. My wife's flying in that evening from a business trip outside. It's starting to snow. I'm thinking, it's fall. How am I going to get up there? Am I going to make it? And she being Errol, the young pup, had spent so much time with the people who were here, they had kind of adopted her as their mascot for the night. There was a traveling cache that the geocoin had been left in next to this other cache up there that's now been archived at Independence Mine State Park. Well, Errol and I got up there. One set of tracks coming out. It was a park ranger driving home that night. We got there. We started looking. It was getting dark. I was being on the side of a mountain in a snowstorm in a boulder field is not fun. But by golly, that dog sniffed out and smelled the people that she'd spent the night with before. She smelled their scent, come over, and I heard a plastic box drop. She picked it up and dropped it. And about 10 feet away, I went over there, and I sat down, and I'm telling you, I actually had tears in my eyes. If you've ever found a mountain bike coin in the wild, and here I'm a relatively new cacher, and I'm thinking I'm not going to be able to carry this off, but thanks to my dog, that standard poodle, who had got all that love from the folks from that had come up on that Alaska Cache and Dash experience. She scented them out, found that geocoin on the side of the mountain. So, of course, credit goes to her. But I'll tell you, that's one of the ways Mike and I met was we had noticed similarities in how we like to get out and do things. And while urban caching has its place, both of us, there's nothing more fun for us than taking a directed dog walk. And that's what I call geocaching. I'm telling folks about it. I have dogs who expect me to take them for a walk. And when you have a goal in mind and a place to go to, and it's a place that's beautiful and has a trail to it, and it's often in a park, and you're in your own community and you know where the nice places are, take your dog along with you. Amplify the experience, because the two of you have a great time, or in Mike's case, when you go with Mike, there's 2, sometimes 3, and his dogs are a ton of fun to have along on the trail. It's a great experience. It's an amplification of how much fun it is to cache with youngsters, because the enthusiasm and energy is going, and you can't help but be excited when they're forcing up the trail ahead of you. So we love to cache with dogs up there.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a black
dogs
lab
like with a group of 5-year-olds.
There you go. I
I was
agree.
gonna say, I've got a black lab, and I love her, and she's a lot of fun too. But she's worthless geocaching. So
That's funny. Well, hey, you guys are talking about getting out with the dogs and hitting the trails and going out in some of these amazing places. Now, most of our listeners, well, I don't know. I'm going to make an assumption that most of our listeners have not had the opportunity to be up to Alaska or be that far north, period. And so, based on that, there's going to be some preconceptions people have about what it's like in Alaska year-round, winter, summer, spring. But maybe you guys can share with us a little bit, what is actually the weather like, and how does that affect cache maintenance for you guys? Are there unique challenges?
Well, what they say up here is if you don't like the weather, wait 20 minutes. It'll change. Yeah, summertime's great. If it's easy enough to avoid the bugs by going up in elevation, but 24 hours of light, don't need a headlamp. You can cache. It doesn't get dark from mid-May to mid-August up here. And in the wintertime, cache maintenance is a bit of a challenge for some people because of snow. But Alaskans, most people are up here in Alaska because they like it, like the climate, and don't let the weather keep you down. I've got a personal caching record of having found a cache at minus 56 below in Fairbanks. And I've cached at 109 degrees above in Arizona, and given the choice, I'd go back and cache at minus 50 before I cache at over 100 again. So.
I always say it's a lot easier to warm up than cool down.
It actually is. That's right. That's right. And my wife and I flew to Barrow, and we hosted an event up there. A school teacher stopped by to see us and find out what it was about. But we'd flown in. Alaska Airlines does a weekly sale, and they had Barrow on sale for $99 one way. Well, obviously I wasn't buying just a one-way ticket, but it gave us a chance to get a far north cache spike in our map. And it was in May. The community was preparing for the whaling season, and so there was lots of activity along the coast. We flew in and rented a car and drove around and hiked out and looked at things. And the temperatures were in the teens, which was very comfortable getting in and out of the little Ford Escape we had. It wasn't a windy day. It was a sunny day. We were blessed with that. The fog stayed offshore. But that was every bit as much fun as you could possibly imagine because it was all new to us. And that represented a northern tier tundra and coastal experience. I haven't had the opportunity yet to cache very much in Southeast, where one of our board members is a resident of Ketchikan, and she sends these fabulous photos of hiking up. Right now, the snow is still at high elevation there, and they go hiking out to a lake through a rainforest, and they have these vistas across the sound. And, that's different than what you see in the northern tier. The areas that Mike has cached in Fairbanks, I've got to be there in summer and winter, and that's a different kind of forest environment than we have here in Anchorage even. So the state is so large and offers so many opportunities that, for example, someone who does an Inside Passage cruise tour geocaching only sees a narrow slice of what the rest of the state has to offer. It's different around every corner and on every hilltop. Pretty amazing. We have a 1,400-acre park just on the south side of the airport here that has had, it used to be a Nike Hercules missile base. So other than that portion, none of it was developed. And it has these fabulous trails that have been put in by the skiers and the mountain bikers. And you get to see what the land looked like before European contact occurred. A couple of neat earth caches in there as well, but it has a community of coyotes. There are lynx there. Black bears are resident there, and of course
brown bears, moose.
Yeah, everywhere. Moose. So that right in the city here, you have the opportunity to go wild if you want to, and you don't even have to hike up on the mountainside for it. Get up on the mountainside, you might encounter a wolf to add to your mix, and certainly brown bear. So it's definitely different opportunities here. One of our best partners as land managers is the Bureau of Land Management, and they have how big is that place, Mike? 900 acres over there at Campbell Tract?
Yeah, it's at least least a couple of square miles, which would be
Yeah.
1,200 acres.
Mm-hmm. They were one of the first land managers that gave us permission to place, that also asked us to participate in a land management program that helped separate humans from bears during the salmon run. And they were doing that to try and reduce the conflict, not so much to bother the bears, but to keep the bears from bothering people. And they were a little surprised that we had absolutely no grief at moving caches 150 feet away from the center line of the salmon stream. I mean, it just makes sense to me. But that kind of brackets the city. There's two opportunities for you to be involved in a place where you have a genuine opportunity on an afternoon or evening after work, go park, get out, go hiking, and you have a certain opportunity to run in, certainly moose, but bears. The biggest thing we worry about and that we teach safety about is what to do when you encounter a moose on a trail. But it's certainly something that anyone who's cached more than a couple of days here will encounter.
Very unique environment, to say the least.
A little different.
That's very cool. We have some more feedback in the Q&A from Wet Coaster, and it actually dovetails really nicely with a question I had for you guys. So first we'll start with Wet Coaster's question, and that's, do you ever hear from people who are planning to go up to Alaska on a cruise, and they'd like to find some caches when they're in the various, I guess, port towns along the coast?
Yes, we hear from them regularly, and on our website, we actually have a page that has the coordinates of the ports or the cruise docks, so people have that to use as a center point for their pocket queries.
Cool.
And it's not only cruisers who contact us about, hey, you got ideas for must-do caches or trips to do, and the first question we come back with, and that helps us provide the feedback, is what kind of experience are you looking for? Do you want to hike? Do you want to climb? Do you want to road trip it? Wes served as a guide for one of the bigger cruise groups to come through, and I'll let him describe that because he actually took the group down to Portage and had some experiences with some folks that were a little concerned about getting too far from the van, if I remember correctly.
Well, it's I have a lot of contacts in the tourism industry here, and one of the odd things that happens is there's a parking lot paranoia. People who have not encountered wilderness are terrified of getting out of visual contact with their bus. And this may, I mean, it may sound absurd at first, but there are people who are concerned that if I get lost, if I can't see my bus, I'm going to get lost. And if I get lost, I'm doomed. And one of the premier opportunities for geocaching is found in Portage Valley, the valley that connects the end of Turnagain Arm, the east end of our city, with the community of Whittier. While the highway to Seward goes down and makes a big bend there's a road that goes off, goes through a 2.5-mile long tunnel, and then connects with Whittier, which is a cruise port. And in that area, the National Forest Service has a series of beautiful parks, and there's this incredible trail called the Trail of Blue Ice. It's paved for half of its distance, and the other half is like a grade 5 trail that's suitable for being able to run a powered wheelchair on. So what you have in that trail is excellent mobility. It's virtually flat. You can't hardly tell what the grade is. There's these incredible Canadian yellow cedar bridges that have been built so that you walk out over the top of salmon spawning areas. And we have done I think the organization's members have done a good job of saturating the area with interesting caches along the trails to draw your attention to local features. So I met the group down there. They debarked from their bus, and some of them were immediately concerned. The bus driver knew right where he was going to go to pick us up. Some were concerned, well, that's a hike of 2 miles. I said, yes, 1.75 miles of it's paved, and the rest is on bridges. And one of the concerns I immediately recognized, I like to cruise. In fact, I'm going on a cruise in December and missing our signature event because of it. But the age of people who cruise often tends to be in the 55-plus zone. And I realized as I was talking to some of these individuals, I had people with knee and hip replacements and so forth who were going to be expanding their reach beyond what they had been used to doing. So we tested that out, and it worked. It was great. They were so encouraged. We unfortunately didn't get to see any moose because there were so many bikers on the trails. The area had been pretty cleared out of them that day. But the next day, when they had got to Anchorage and stayed overnight, some of them wanted to push the envelope, and we went to Kincaid Park, which is this park on the outside of the city. And we traveled in groups. The group that wanted to go with me to Kincaid Park, I said, now, you're going to have an elevation change of 200 to 300 feet over a course of 3 miles. And I'm just not sure if people don't have a concept of how large that is, but that area of the park is formed by dunes that have been blown in off of the glacial till further downstream in turning an arm. And so it's a very abrupt bluff with all kinds of vegetation over it and these neat trails that traverse up through it that skiers and bikers use. You get stupendous views. And I realized when I got up there, there were people in the group who they almost fell over when we had a pair of eagles come overhead, maybe 30 or 40 feet above our heads, and they were shrieking at us, and they were talking to each other. The people didn't realize eagles talk to each other. It was like, oh, look, people, we'll follow them. Maybe they'll pick out food. But I had people who were getting dizzy standing on the top of the bluff looking up there, and I'm thinking, that's a 200-foot drop. So I found myself in the place of going, okay, all of us are going to join hands. And recognizing we were pushing the envelope of people who were, this was them coming to the last frontier, and I never would have thought to do that with the groups I normally take out there, but this group needed to have that, and I was very pleased that we had people in their 70s who had accepted the challenge of going that far, and who were able to come back and show everybody else in the group how they got buzzed by eagles. We did see a moose on the trail on that trip, and they said that little 3-mile hike exposed them to more of Alaska's natural state than the entire Inside Passage did, where they were leaning on a rail and looking at glaciers. So I was glad we were able to show that to them. The challenge we have as an organization is drawing on our members to provide enough tour guides when we have an event like that. Experienced travelers don't have any problem renting a car and going off to a trailhead and going somewhere, but for folks who were going to be pushing beyond that parking lot paranoia thing, that was something that had to have a group of people along. And I had several of, in fact, one family, the Van family came along. The little kids were great. They were holding what to them would have been Grandma and Grandpa's hands and showing them all kinds of cool stuff as we hiked over it. But it's fun to have visitors. We just have to make sure we set aside time for them well.
Yeah. So another thing the people who catch the cruises can do is we have members in Ketchikan, Juneau, nobody presently in Sitka, definitely in Seward and Anchorage, is look up the local people before. A lot of cruisers like to host an event in a town, and I see this as the reviewer for Hawaii as well, is cruise ship people book events right in the cruise area. That's the last place in the town that the locals typically want to go. It's crowded, expensive, and they might have they know where the hole-in-the-wall restaurants are to go. So look up the locals, and that's one thing when somebody contacts me and says, hey, I'm coming up through Ketchikan, Juneau, Sitka, doing the milk run on the cruise ship. I say, great. You want to contact so-and-so in Ketchikan, you want to contact so-and-so in Juneau, talk to us here in Anchorage if you're coming through Anchorage on the train or something. So you can, and be ready though when you talk to your host to tell them what kind of an experience you want to have where you visit. Help them help you have a good time.
Right.
That's fantastic advice. I was just going to use the opportunity to also plug a little bit. I found out this morning that the good folks in Victoria at Landsharks are organizing an Alaskan geocaching cruise this coming August. And we will have more on that on the upcoming shows. But to our guests, had you heard about that?
I'd seen the notice, and we were excited because we would like to, as an organization, we have our own, how do I say it politely, Mike? We have our own reason for wanting to expand a relationship with the folks at Landshark. They've been very gracious to us in the past when we've done things with them, and so we'd like to explore the opportunity of some of their links to good artists in the bling trade, so to speak. But I also have been impressed with the things they've done in organizing events in their area and sponsoring and hosting things. And so we kind of like to pick their brain about what works and what doesn't, and ideas they might have.
And I think another advantage that Landsharks has in leading a cruise like this is they understand the Northwest. They're local, they get it. And some of the other cruises that are organized by people from other regions, they don't know what to expect. They don't know what they're coming into. People in the Northwest know how to dress for Northwestern weather. And folks coming from elsewhere in the country can get a bit put off by the variable, wet, chilly, windy, weather that a lot of people just hole up. And we have a saying up here: there's no bad weather, there's just bad gear.
There you
Nice.
go. Yeah, you can tell the ones carrying umbrellas are not from the Northwest.
Yes.
Yeah, they're the ones with the inverted umbrellas.
Well,
Right.
Mike and Wes, thank you so much for coming on our show tonight. I mean, this has been a fabulous time, and it makes me want to go to Alaska just that much more.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. And guys, if folks are interested in learning more about Geocache Alaska, how can they get involved?
The website, geocachealaska.org. You can go to that website. We're about to transition to a new format, a new look, but it will still have the same information. It'll tell you how to join. It'll provide education links, and our education links, by the way, are aimed at teaching cachers in Alaska conditions. So there's things about backcountry safety if you're interested in that. You'll see our newsletters. There's a link to our forums through that. It has information. Some of the cache lists have been made public that people have set up specifically. In fact, the one I set up for the cruisers is in there for the southeast stuff. Some photo galleries, links to see our GeoSwag, and especially links to see our GeoCoins. You mentioned some interest in that in the future. We have I think we have a very well done long series of Alaska-themed product in the GeoCoin area that are absolutely unique. You won't see them in other venues. And we've tried some different things recently, and we're looking to see how we can amp that up to the future. But that's all found at that website, GeocacheAlaska, all run together, .org.
You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Great. All at Geocache Alaska, all one word.
Yes.
Yep.
So,
Correct.
guys, thanks again. Now, to our host, how do our listeners find you guys? Land Monkey, let's start with you.
Sure. Well, you can always find us at landmonkey.blogspot.ca, but most of the activity for us is going to be on YouTube, and it's just search Land Monkey on YouTube, and you'll find us there. You may even find Dear Geocache Guy there now. But anyways, also on Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope, we're at LandMonkeyGC, and on Facebook, we're Team Land Monkey. So looking forward to connecting with more and more viewers and listeners.
Good for you. Wits End, where are you?
I'm Wits End. Twitter.com/WitsEnd, Facebook.com/WitsEnd, Google.com/+WitsEnd US. Of course, they have to be different. And, well, WitsEnd.us and WitsEnd just about every place else. And yourself, Mr. The Bad Cop?
Well, on Twitter, look for Caching NW, Facebook, Caching NW, and Google Plus, Caching NW. It's a pretty easy way to find us.
So consistent.
Thank you.
The consistency is good. And as we always do, we consistently want to thank you, our faithful listeners, for taking the time to listen to this episode of Caching in the Northwest. Did you know that you can be part of the show? We haven't mentioned it much tonight, but you can call 253-693-TFTC. Leave us a comment, ask us a question, invite us to ride on a dog sled, whether that be huskies or poodles. Anytime, day or night, you can yell mush. Of course, you can email feedback@cachingnw.com, and your support helps to keep quality shows coming. If you like the show, why don't you run over there and mush and click that PayPal button on the cachingnw.com website. This show is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Copyright 2015 by. Thanks for
Good night,
joining us,
folks.
everybody. 73.
And we are officially clear of the recording. Guys, thank you so much. I mean, wow, the stories you're telling is like, yeah, I'm just going to jump on a plane and head up there now.
Yeah, no kidding.
Hey, there's
Wow.
a great fare war going on right now at Delta and Alaska Airlines. It hasn't been this cheap to come up to Anchorage in years.
Oh,
right.
interesting.
$200 round trip.
Wow.
I've wanted to come for years. Now I want to come all the more.
Yeah. A few years ago, my parents went up on the Alaska, is it the Maritime Highway System?
Yep, the Alaska
They
Marine
did.
Highway.
Yeah.
That's a great way to do it. If you want to do a cruise, actually, I call it the poor man's cruise. My family and I have done it several times, cashing in airline miles to get into one of the port cities and then spending a week to 10 days hopping on and off the ferry.
Nice.
Nice thing, too, is the ferry lets you spend a day or two in each community, whereas the cruise ship gives you a few hours and you're out of there.
Exactly. So, you can wait and catch the next ferry. Anyway, my parents did it, loved it. We've got Hawaii on the schedule for next year for our 25th anniversary, but after that, we want to take the ferry up to Alaska. We think that's going to be a lot of fun. So,
With our state budget woes, you just might have to help him paddle it.
Yeah.
they went. Where'd they go? They went in early to mid-May. I can't remember the dates exactly. And they
I'll
said,
be right back. I can let somebody in the door here. Hang on.
okay, they were on the ferry with, I want to say, less than a dozen other people.
Wow.
So-
Yeah, the ferries are pretty bohemian. Up on the upper deck, there's what's called the solarium, and that's where people set up their tents and they just camp up there.
Wow.
They didn't want to pay for a stateroom, and it's just a good time.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
crazy.
My parents did a stateroom, but yeah, there were people camped up in the solarium. They said they're sleeping all over. They sleep in the theater. It's just wherever. There'll be tents that are duct taped down to the
To the deck.
deck. Yeah.
You just can't bust out your camp stove. They get a little nervous about flames on the
Sure.
boats.
Yeah.
And they said the food was fabulous. It was very similar to being on a cruise. They had a chef that put out a menu 3 times a day, and they said they lacked for nothing. Wi-Fi, okay, but
Yeah.
they'll get over that.
Well, no Wi-Fi, and they've taken the bars off the boats too, but the food's still there.
That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. That's an interesting way of traveling up there.
Yeah, it is. So we had some more Q&A. Let's see. 3 Hams says 5 video feeds. This will crash the Googles.
Oh, of course.
But we've proved him wrong. And B Pendragon says, well, at least they're not using Skype, so you can't blame me this time. Let's see. A big plus in Alaska. We talked about moose and bear. There are no snakes in Alaska.
That is
That's
correct.
Well, no live snakes, shall we say.
And no large poisonous spiders.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
I,
Oh, go ahead.
No poison ivy. No
Right.
poison oak.
I always
Yeah.
tell folks who ask about geocaching in BC if they're not from here, at least the coastal and northern parts of BC, and they're asking about the indigenous wildlife, and I say the great thing about caching in BC is anything that's going to kill you, you'll see it coming. It's bigger than you.
It's big enough.
That's a good way to put it. I got to remember
Yeah.
that.
We just say we're not at the top of the food chain up here.
You are the food chain.
Invented the food chain. That's right. That's right. And in fact, that's one of the local cartoonists' great signature cartoons. It shows 2 people stepping off the tour bus in Denali and says, "You are now entering the food chain," and all the animals in the background are drooling. They're watching. Terrible comment.
Oh, Bryling says he wants to go to Alaska as well. Wet Coaster says, I've been on 2 cruises to Alaska. The sad part is that it was before I started geocaching.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
he'll just
I
have
mean,
to go again.
Exactly. There's your reason.
There you go.
Now, I just
Mike?
had a thought about taking a cruise ship run. Can you do caches along a route for a cruise ship?
Hmm.
You would have to set your, distance from the road quite wide.
There
Yeah,
are
we-
there are some nice earth caches on the cruise ship routes that people have written up as they've come up the Inside Passage, Glacier Bay, and elsewhere.
Oh, now you have our Earth Cache monkey thinking about this.
Yeah, that'll get the land monkeys on
Oh,
there.
I was already thinking about it. Actually, when I was speaking with the great folks over at Land Sharks
Sharks.
this morning about it, yeah, they were saying that they also are earth cachers, and they're saying that part of what they're doing is, as they're planning the itinerary, is they're making sure there is a sufficient number of earth caches involved in the overall planning. So I thought, yeah.
Well,
Brylan.
When
Go
you
ahead.
if you have a port of call in Juneau, there's a really nice one called Mal's Viewpoint, where you can participate in a glacier study, where they're having people go to the coordinates and take a picture of the glacier and post it. And over time, the cache logs will present a time lapse of the glacier's retreat.
Wow, how cool is that?
That is cool.
That's very cool.
In the Q&A, Brylang says routes are limited to length, I believe. And that's true. I mean,
Yeah,
but
it's 500 miles.
yeah, you can do sections.
Yeah.
So,
Now, I think there have been some lists built that suggest caches along that area there, and we even tried to work with the folks coming up. It was an interesting group. The first group I worked with, they were it was a tourist agency out of the New Jersey area that was working with a geocacher who's the head of the geocaching organization in Bermuda. Very nice lady, great organization. And the challenge they were having was trying to make sure that the wide variety of caching interests and strengths among the people who were in the group were going to be met. They had some people who were at the 10,000 find level and some people at the 100 find level, and that's the challenge you have when you're working with a big group like that. But we helped them develop some driving tours and so forth. But one of the issues you have if you're coming along that route is if your cruise line has a day at sea, you very well there's just a very good chance that there's no way you're going to be able to maintain a caching string if you're working on a cache a day type thing. There may be a day there where you just have to do what is great about a day at sea on a cruise ship and put your feet up and kick back and unplug. And that's hard to do for a cacher who's got a string going.
log a virtual.
Yeah, not even a virtual in that area. So it can be interesting.
Well, good. Gentlemen, I'm going to stop the broadcast at this point. So, listeners, thank you so much. You guys make it all worthwhile for us. So, thanks again. See you next week.